Call to order the City of Lincoln City City Council meeting scheduled for March 12, 2012. Roll call, please.
Mayor Dick Anderson.
Here.
Gordon Eggleton.
Here.
Gary Ellingson.
Here.
Chester Norikis.
Here.
Roger Sprague.
Here.
Henry Quant.
Here.
And Alex Ward.
Here.
Stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Indivisible. Thank you all. It's again so nice to see so many people in attendance. This evening we have at this time for comments from citizens. Comments from citizens present on agenda and non-agenda items. The purpose of the comments from citizens is to allow citizens to present information or raise an issue regarding items not on the agenda or regarding agenda items that do not include a public hearing. A time limit of 5 minutes per citizen shall apply. I've asked the city recorder to utilize the light system so the speaker will be informed as to their remaining time and so that we have consistency. As a general rule, this is not a time for an exchange of questions. However, at the conclusion of this agenda item, a councilor can discuss or raise questions regarding something presented by a citizen. I would ask everybody as they come to the microphone, as well as councilors, I've heard from citizens that they're not able to always pick up your voices, so I would appreciate you, as they say, eat the mic when you speak, and same thing with comments. Would like to get your comments of record. First up, Jerry Warner.
Name is Jerry Warner, Mayor and Council, and I live at 1233 Lakewood. I did not get a chance. I hate to even take up your time at the council meeting. I was hoping to get to speak at the urban renewal meeting, but obviously there wasn't time. Anyway, I wanted to make a few comments, but one of them you mentioned about undergrounding at the meeting, and there is a statute, a state statute right now on books that allow for undergrounding districts, and if the city was interested, they could go ahead and underground all of 101 if they wanted to by forming a district outside of urban renewal. Just to pass that on to you, I'm sure that thought Mr. Hawker would bring it up, but he didn't. Anyway, in regards to the statute that covers 457, which is urban renewal, when Lyle Stewart, who originally designed the program here for Lincoln City, when he drew out the boundaries on that, he took in all of the vacant properties that he possibly could find and left out a lot of the buildings that were in existence. That way you could leverage more money for urban renewal projects. However, part of his plan is to develop business, and that was part of the original plan, was to try to create jobs and build business. To this point, as far as I'm concerned, that hasn't happened. I think it's been a total failure from that part. Anyway, there has been no commercial development whatsoever. There's been no business parks developed, anything that would present a climate to bring people into Lincoln City. And to do that, why, you need a good economic development plan. Actually, urban renewal is economic development. I know you talk about 1990 is when the first time it was brought up, but basically it's been in there all the time, and that's what urban renewal is to repay the taxpayers with increased property values. That's what it's all about. Anyway, the mission statement pretty much spells this out anyway. It's to attract job-producing private investment that will improve property values. Mr. Olson had commented to some of the things that I had said in my letter to you, that there was 4 basic things that need to be accomplished to have a successful urban renewal project. And I just wanted to cover a couple of them here, because I know I don't have a whole lot of time. Anyway, about, yes, 75% of the money has gone into city infrastructure of that $38 million that's been available. What I'm saying is that has not produced theoretically one job or build any incentive for anybody to start a new business in Lincoln City. I know that Chester made the comment about $205 million, $619,265 was developed from urban renewal. Well, that's not really true. Actually, the county has been increasing property taxes by 3% per year. And when you start compounding that, there's a tremendous amount of that money, at least 40% or better, that actually was developed by increase in taxes. Another example I want to give you, I'm not trying to put down his statement, but I am going to point out a couple things. 2003 to 2012, the increase in tax value was only $953,805. In other words, during that 10-year period, the assessed value only increased less than $1 million. That is taken right off the county records, and I'd be happy to show any one of you that. Now, the other thing that I have a real concern about, and of course he mentioned in here economic development, there was $400,000 made available for economic development in the last budget year, but nothing has happened on that. The other concern I really have is the fact that if it continues at the same pace, $6.6 million will have gone into overheads. That's for the Urban Renewal Office and all of the assorted different projects that it does. The average city, it runs 3 to 5%. Here it's running 15%, which is totally out of line. I've talked to people at the state level and city level, and as far as I'm concerned, and they don't want to be quoted, but that sounds ridiculous to them. Anyway, he made a comment about the fact that there was 18.8% of the city's total area was inside of the, urban renewal occupies 15.2% of the land in Lincoln City, and only 8.8% of new construction has occurred in urban renewal. He said that is not, there is no figures. I took that right out of Mr. Hawker's budget letter. Same thing, and under $3 million of commercial construction has occurred in the urban renewal district. However, there's been approximately $3 million in land value taken out by the city purchasing land. It looks like I'm about out of time here, and so I had a couple other items, but if anybody made the question about what's blighted, if you will refer to ORS 457.020, it spells out what blight is completely in the state statute.
That should about do it, Mr. Warner.
All right, thank you very much.
See you next meeting.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
you know, if there's an urban renewal meeting next time, there might be a time for public comment.
Right. Yep.
During the urban renewal meeting.
Well, I'd appreciate it if there was.
That was actually a work session we had. Yeah. There's always comment time before council and urban renewal.
Thank you for your time.
All right. Thank you. James Stovall.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I'm Jim Stovall. My wife and I live at 6329 Northwest Logan Road. That's in Rhodes End. We're full-time residents, and my topic tonight is claim for monetary damages and injunction against city officials, city employees, and city agents in their official and personal capacity. My wife and I have received a letter dated February 6, 2012 from the City of Lincoln City threatening a shutoff of our water. Loss of water service will affect the habitability, the value, and usability of my property located at 6329 Northwest Logan Road, and may well create serious safety and health hazards. A shutoff will have significant detrimental impact on our rights as property owners. If the water is shut off, this will seriously damage us and the property. As a result, a claim for monetary damages and for an injunction will be made against the City of Lincoln City and against any official, agent, or employee involved in such an activity on the city's behalf. The threat of water shutoff has already damaged our property rights and has devalued the property. Any such actions concerning a shutoff are tortious in nature, in addition to violating our legal rights to continued water service. Such actions are coercive and have caused us emotional distress and are attempts to intimidate us. It is unacceptable to us that an agency of local government would choose to act in this manner by threatening to withhold a basic and necessary human and property service. And I'd like to leave a copy of my statement with your city recorder.
That'd be fine. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Chris Jalry?
Mr. Mayor, Councilman, thank you for the opportunity to come here and speak to you. My name is Chris Jalloway, and I live at 5429 Northwest Jetty and Rhodes Inn. On at your January 23rd council meeting, Mr. Braden Cresswell delivered 24 notice of tort claims against Lincoln City. These tort claims are identical to the one just read by Mr. Stovall. I'm here today to present City Council an additional 37 new notice of tort claims from residents in Rhodes End. Each of these residents have received Lincoln City's recent hostage annexation letter, where you want to force folks to sign a consent to annex, or Lincoln City will shut off their water. So that's why I'm here. I wanted to read this in, and I've brought the 37 copies, and we'd like to have those also delivered to your clerk to put into the records.
Thank you. David Bauman.
David Bowman, 4715 North Highway 101, Depot Bay, Oregon. I come here tonight to thank you. Your support in the proclamations for the American Legion has made a difference, and the post is up, and all the officers are in place, and I just want to thank you.
Thank you very much. Actually, we're going to wait on, Robert, don't get anxious. Got you down the road on an agenda item, if I have you up, if that's all right. Mr. Hoover, Jim Hoover.
Mayor Anderson, members of the City Council, my name is Jim Hoover. I live at 3150 East Devils Lake Road. I own property in Lincoln City. Also have a business in the city of Lincoln City. I don't know if I should apologize for my absence lately from your meetings. At times, business does have a priority over my desire to keep accountable government in place. I've been watching with interest over the last 8 months the attempt by the City Council to be given an accounting of where money spent at your Visitors Convention Bureau that has a budget of approximately $1.6 million. I've listened to discussions and I've read articles in the paper. The most recent article was from the February 2nd or February 22nd News Guard, and the February 22nd News Guard had an interesting exchange via the media between the mayor and the city manager, where when the question was brought up why it's taken 8 months to provide this accounting of where money is spent on activities, the city manager is quoted as saying, it's not the VCB that's to blame for the lack of specific figures. The city has had to implement brand-new systems, in quotes for the brand-new systems, to track event costs. I had the privilege of attending a workshop that was held Wednesday, this last week, at which I believe most of the city councilors were a part. And I would bring your memory to a comment that was made by your VCB department head, Sandy Pfaff. She made the comment that the reason why there's been this delay in providing you with this accounting is that they had to compile activity codes, and I think she said they had as many as 100 activity codes by which they were doing this accounting of costs, and that the prototype, using her word, for this accounting system wasn't even available from the finance department in the city of Lincoln City until November of 2011, therefore giving an explanation, is what I heard, of why you've had the delay in receiving these numbers. I was surprised when I went back and looked at my public records request and when I received my current public records request, because in fact we show in public records requests that we received that they had an accounting system that had activity codes back into 2010, 2011, a year ago. In fact, when we asked for a public records request for all the costs by these activity codes, they show that they've been tracking these activities by activity codes back to July of this year, or the day or two after you requested them to start tracking them for this budget year. And not only have they been accounting for their activity codes, they've actually been tracking the time that it takes them to account for the costs in their activity codes. And they've been doing that, and that's part of this public records request document, which shows the day-to-day entries by the finance department where this has been going on from July through present, not since November, not since, as Mr. Hawker says, they've had to develop a whole new system, but using an existing system with existing activity codes that all they did was add activity codes to it. The other thing that I found interesting, since the light is still green over there, was the difference between the amount of dollars listed in the workshop packet for the VCB meeting, which said they had spent, as of January 31st, about $756,000, because in our list of activities that they're actually tracking by activity code since July through the same January 31st period, they show that they had only accounted for, through their activity codes, $353,000, thereby indicating to me that over half of their budget that they're expending, they're not tracking by activity codes, even though they have the opportunity to add activity codes to this with the finance department whenever they choose, by simply making a phone call and saying, we have a new activity and we would like to be able to track it through the finance department. This is all really concerning, because I don't know when a person should trust or not trust. And when I have information where one thing is said, but I have a document from the finance department of the city of Lincoln City that shows something else, that creates a real problem. And I apologize for bringing that problem to your attention this evening. I've also indicated to the newspaper, and they have copies of these same public records requests. I actually paid for a copy of the DVD from last Wednesday's meeting so I could double check the statement made by the Lincoln City VCB department head. I went down and procured a copy of the newspaper where the article "Council Prepares to Talk Tourism" was. I would ask that you would no longer delay in allowing them to put off giving you accurate costs. They haven't given you, as the municipal code says, a marketing plan that has budgets for these activities, and now it doesn't appear that they're tracking their activities in the money they spend in more than about 50% of the money that's spent. And these activity codes aren't just for activities. These also include overhead expenses, so it's not just an activity overhead expense differential. Thank you very much for your time. Appreciate the chance to speak with you and look forward to talking to you some more.
Thank you. We had one other gentleman, Robert Carlsman, and we're going to bring him up a little later. Was there anyone else that wanted to speak? that didn't get the opportunity to sign up? Okay. Thank you. Thank you all for your comments. At this point, we'll move then to the consent agenda. And the consent agenda, these items are considered routine and may be enacted in one motion without separate discussion. Any counselor may request that an item be removed for separate discussion and action. The consent agenda consists of minutes of the meeting, February 27th, 2012. Number 2 is Oregon Liquor Control Commission, new outlet application, Beachtown Hospitality, LLC.
Mayor Anderson,
Please.
on the minutes, I just need to let you know that on page 3 at the bottom, it said Yvette Geiser, acting president of the Lincoln City Vacation Homeowners Association. I've added the word vacation in there.
Thank you. Hearing nothing from councilors, I would certainly entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as is.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed with a nay. Hearing none.
Abstain, Mayor, because I was not here for that meeting.
Okay. Then we'll move on to special order of business. And we have, first item under special order of business, a proclamation for the American Legion Foundation and Membership Week, which is March 12th through 18th, 2012. And we have a special guest.
Thank you, Your Honor. Not sure I'm very special,
All right.
but I'm representing Lincoln City American Legion Post 93 this evening, and would propose the following proclamation for your consideration. American Legion Foundation and Membership Week, March 12th through 18th, 2012. Whereas the American Expeditionary Forces, to become known as the American Legion, were in caucus March 16th, 1919 in Paris, France. And whereas, since its founding, the American Legion and its nearly 3 million members have continuously exhibited a deep sense of pride and community and ensured a strong America by serving veterans, their families, and the children of our nation. And whereas the American Legion was responsible for the creation of the original GI Bill, enabling millions of veterans to obtain assistance in education and home loans. And whereas the American Legion was instrumental in the passage of legislation creating the Department of Veterans Affairs. And whereas the American Legion continues to work for a constitutional amendment to protect the American flag from desecration, securing mandatory funding for adequate operation of the Veterans Affairs medical facilities, and operates a family support network for families of active duty personnel and members of the National Guard and Reserves. And whereas the more than 25,000 Legionnaires belonging to the 120 posts across Oregon, along with the 10,000 members of the Sons of the American Legion and the American Legion Auxiliary statewide, collectively volunteer thousands of hours to assist our veterans and their communities. And whereas Lincoln City American Legion Post 97 strongly supports veterans, their families, and our community at large. Therefore, be it resolved that the Lincoln City Council hereby proclaims March 12th through 18th, 2012 as American Legion Foundation Week throughout the city of Lincoln City, Oregon, and encourages citizens to celebrate the many contributions made by members of the American Legion Department of Oregon for over the past 90 years.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Happy to do that. As I look down the way, unless there's an objection, I'll sign on behalf of the council, and we'll so proclaim, if that's all right. Done. Before you go away, are there any special activities during this week that you've got, opportunity to let the public know that's planned the 12th through the 18th?
No, sir.
Okay. And it's a new chapter, is it not?
Revitalized.
Revitalized,
Post.
Okay. And that's what we were thanked
It's
for.
been inactive for about 10 years, and Yes, David just helped set us up and get us reactivated, so we're back up to our good core membership of 15 members and looking for another 100. We're going to get out of the weeds.
Okay, that's great. Well, happy to sign it, and we'll, and you have the original, Kathy, or one that we can sign? Please.
A question. The gentleman that was here previous said he was from Depot Bay. Do you have Depot Bay members in your organization?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay.
We go that far south.
Okay.
And then most of the ones any further south than that belong in Newport.
Okay, thank you.
We go from here from Depot Bay up to the coast for a while.
Great. I'll sign it now if you'd like, and if you'd like the signed copy.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, you bet. Thank you. That's for all that good publicity you can use now. All right. Thank you very much. Thanks for what you do. All right, then let's move on to other special order of business. Looks like our group working on a budget committee has been very busy. We have numerous applicants that you're, Mr. Norikis, you've interviewed and making recommendations for the budget committee?
Yes, Councilor Ellingson and myself interviewed 6 individuals for 6 openings in the Budget Committee and felt that all 6 of them were more than adequately qualified to serve, and appreciate their stepping forward to help us with this process. And I would certainly recommend their approval. Mr. Ellingson?
Yes, I would like to second that. And along with my second, Mr. Mayor, I would like to let you know of the people that we interviewed and are recommending. 2 contacted me to ask if they should be here this evening, and I took the liberty of telling them Chester and I would take care of the recommendation process. They just didn't want us to think that they're not interested by not coming tonight.
Understand.
But they will be at all of the Budget Committee meetings.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. And of course, and then I said I second Chester's nomination.
Mr. Mayor, let me read the names, if you don't mind.
Well, we're going to have to do a motion for each individual. So if you would give the name as you make a motion, then the council will vote on each one. Just go down the list, and that would be helpful. Make a motion to have council appoint XYZ to the Budget Committee.
Mr. Mayor, before you do that, does not the appointment create a term of, 2 years on the Budget Committee? How long is the term?
It varies by the open seat, so they'll be slotted by the openings. The committee is actually a 7-person citizen, and they have terms, or remaining terms, because some have resigned, others are live. There's one existing member, Lenny Nelson, is on it with extended terms. So I don't, so they aren't all consistent, would be the answer. They're not all 3 years or 2 years.
I just thought it was worthwhile to make sure everybody understood that.
Yeah, and that's a good point, because I have had people call on other committees when they realized that it was a short term, and it's because they were sitting in, filling a seat that had been vacated. Correct?
Correct. Some of the appointments are partial terms and some are full terms.
Okay. Well, with that, if we could then, Mr. Norikis, if you would make the motion to have the council accept for a Budget Committee, would be terrific.
Your Honor, I move that the council appoint Gordon C. McLean to the Budget Committee 2012.
And I would like to second that, Mr. Mayor.
We have a motion and a second to have council appoint Gordon C. McLean for the Budget Committee. All those in favor, does this need to be a roll call vote? No, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. All opposed? None?
I would also move that the council appoint applicant Dennis R. Hoagland to the Budget Committee 2012.
I would like to second that, Mr. Mayor.
We have a motion and a second to appoint Dennis R. Hoagland to the Budget Committee. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I would also move that council appoint applicant Susan Walke to the Budget Committee 2012.
I will second that, Mr. Mayor.
We have a motion and a second to appoint Susan Walke to the Budget Committee. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I move that council appoint applicant Dick Ricketts to the Budget Committee 2012.
I second that, Mr. Mayor.
We have a motion and a second to have the council appoint Dick Ricketts to the Budget Committee. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none.
I move the council appoint applicant Suzanne Ryan to the Budget Committee 2012.
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
We have a motion and a second to appoint Suzanne Ryan to the Budget Committee. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none.
I move that the council appoint applicant James Taylor to the Budget Committee 2012.
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
We have a motion and a second to have council appoint James Taylor to the Budget Committee. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. And again, thank you both for spearheading that. That's quite a list. There's a couple familiar names that must have been their term up. So there's some folks with experience, and like I mentioned, Lenny Nelson is on that committee as well. But it's nice to see some new folks taking an interest. And as I understand it, Mr. Ocker, we're going to try to do some kind of training even before the May time.
Yeah,
frame.
we're going to certainly invite them in to see if they can spend an hour or so with us to kind of go over the not the coming budget. We can't talk about that at all. We can't talk about what they might like to see in it or whatever. We'll leave that alone. We'll talk about the process. We'll talk about the structure, the number of funds we've got, how revenues come in and where they're allocated, just some basics to help make, and hopefully have them spend a little time with the existing budget, because that's a good starting place.
Well, it is. And that's great. Again, as I've spoken to people, one of the real values of the Budget Committee is understanding where the dollars come from that enter the city and the expenses. And it's, quite frankly, not like our common household checkbook. So it does take a little time, and it's nice to see some people, have multiple years on the committee. The Budget Committee is actually comprised of these 7 individual citizens as well as City Council 7. Okay? Thank you again, both Gary and Chester, for doing the interviews and visiting with the folks.
Yeah, Chester set all the appointments up and headed the our part of the job up, so I would like to thank him.
Great. All right, then moving on to our next item, we're going to have an update from the Lincoln City Cultural Center. So nice to see you again.
Well, my name is Nikki Price, and I'm the Executive Director of the Lincoln City Cultural Center. We're at 540 Northeast Highway 101 inside the historic D-Lake School Building. I thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today and to present our annual report. I trust everyone received the digital copies of that, and if you'd like a paper copy, I brought some of those with me as well. The report will also be available online starting tomorrow, so everybody in the viewing audience can go check it out at lincolncity-culturalcenter.org. We've had a few changes in the Board of Directors since I spoke with you last. Our new president is John Collier. He's here today. We also have a new vice president, Irita Murphy. We have the same treasurer, Anita Hazelbaker, and our former president, Leslie Roper Green, is now serving as the secretary, plus 3 members at large, Beth Jarrell, Elizabeth Black, and Ince Walker. We do most of the daily business with 2.5 positions. I've been there since September. You probably met Corey Symington, who does facilities management and info center, and of course our office manager, Vicki Walling, who's been there for 5 years. But we all know who does the real work at the Cultural Center, and that's our volunteers. According to our logs, we had 2,503 hours logged at the Cultural Center last year. We used a figure that's provided by the independent sector, $18.47 an hour in Oregon. It's the value of a volunteer hour. So that's $46,230 that was provided as a service and investment in the Cultural Center by volunteers. And I'm very proud to be involved in any organization that can pull in that kind of personal investment. 2011 was marked by a lot of wonderful performances. In fact, there was about 24% more activities at the Cultural Center in fiscal 2011 than in 2010, and the attendance came up around the same amount. I know I saw a lot of you at the Cultural Center this year enjoying these events. The Chessman Gallery continued to offer fine arts and exhibits, one every month. The picture there that you see is Alder House 3. That was our glass show in October. We also made some improvements to the building, adding the ceramic studio in the lower level. That was paid for with a grant from the Hillman Foundation and with some donated equipment. Also, now it provides the only public ceramic studio in North County. We have a new sound system that was paid for by a matching grant from the city. We also received grants from the Confederated Tribes of Siletz Indians and Pacific Power to complete that matching program. It was all put together by a volunteer who designed the whole system and enabled us to get a lot for our money. We also had a couple trees that were removed in the northwest corner. They were growing too close to the old building, and when we removed them, we found that the roof had been damaged in the process, so we put a few $100s in repairing that roof corner. We've had a lot of excellent news in fiscal 2011. The farmers market doubled in size over the last 2 years. We got a new brand and a logo with Beach Cabin Creative and put that signage on the outside of the building. And we added some new classes, and we offered some new events like Native American Heritage Month, which we hope will be traditions. Memberships did very well. We had a big membership drive in May, and we also saw another surge in July. We got about $7,900 in renewals, about that same amount in new members. That's a 30% increase overall over fiscal 2010. We saw donations stay about the same from year to year. We saw $9,000 come in during the summertime and during our fiscal crisis, and another $9,500 came in the campaign November, December. We're tracking those donations in a new way. We have a piece of software called GiftWorks, which was designed especially for nonprofits like ours. It allows us to take spreadsheets and institutional memory and turn it into real data points that can be used for years to come. It establishes relationships between donors and businesses and organizations so that we can have a real relationship with the people who support us. We executed several grants. Of course, we have the City of Lincoln City and the Miller Foundation matching grants that pay for my position. We had the sound system grant. We have a lovely grant from IBM that helped pay for our software. Native American Heritage Month was paid for by the Oregon Arts Commission. We upgraded our handicap door thanks to the Oregon Coast Council for the Arts, and we put a little seed money in our Missoula Children's Theater Fund thanks to U.S. Bank. The big news for us this year is going to be the sign. We received a grant last year from the USDA for a new brick monument sign. The image is a little bit elongated there, so it's not quite true to how it's going to look. But there's going to be a brick along the outside that matches the brick of the building. The top half, where it says Cultural Center, are going to be acrylic bump-out letters that have a real three-dimensional look as you go past them, perpendicular to the highway on the southwest lawn. And that line underneath there can be up to 5 lines of amber messaging can change once an hour according to city code. So we'll be able to tell people a lot of what's going on inside the building. And I know that was an important piece to the overall success of the Cultural Center, and we're really happy to be able to achieve it using this federal grant money. And we got it thanks to our relationship with the Lincoln City Farmers Market. It's a farmers market promotion grant. So we're going to be able to put a lot of the seasonal produce and what's happening in the farmers market in this sign as it goes through the week. We also got a recent grant from the Lincoln County Economic Development Fund, and that's going to be used to upgrade the plumbing. Going to be connecting with the new city main, so we're going to be able to have lovely water, hopefully, in the next 18 months. So in the year to come, we're going to be doing some world music and some performances that we are producing rather than just hosting. We have coffee concerts, which is a local musicians showcase. We have a D-Lake Dance Night on the second Thursday of every month. We're going to be hosting a D-Lake School Reunion in August, and we're planning a subscription concert series that starts in the fall. We're working to fulfill the vision statement of the Cultural Center, which is to have economic development through this Center of Visual and Performing Arts. We have a few strategies that we're hoping to enact. We're working to produce a value, to fill a niche, and to provide things that are not already being provided here in Lincoln City. Entertaining, educational programming that has a lot of variety. I want it to stay as affordable as possible so that everyone can come and enjoy a concert for $5 or $10, as well as an upper-end concert that might be good for another audience. And we're going to be providing a lot of opportunities for children because we feel that that's an important piece of our cultural health of our community, is to provide music and art for our kids. We're strengthening the partnerships that we already possess with a lot of other city agencies, farmers and crafters markets, Let There Be Arts, Chamber of Commerce, VCB. We're working with the Oregon Coast Community College. And we're going to be doing a lot more outreach into local schools using our power as a performing arts venue. And we're going to be putting in together a lot more systematic business practices that will help the long-term health of our organization and as well as the asset that we inhabit. We're working on things like internal controls and personnel management practices, volunteer manuals, all sorts of little things that are going to make a big difference in the long term. So I welcome your questions, and I can stick around as long as you like to discuss.
Thank you, Nikki. Questions from council? Yep, go ahead.
One question, please. Under income, Nikki, we've got a total, we've got service management fee. Is that the fee the city pays for the information center?
That's correct. That's correct. That's the payment that the city gives us to run the information center in accordance with the city's requirements.
Thank you. And thank you for the update. Congratulations on the acquisition of grants and the activities numbers going up, attendance going up, farmers market going up, a new sign, membership increase, and donation increase. Beautiful job. Thank you.
Thanks. And the farmers market has moved indoors for part of the year now. So every Sunday during the same 9 to 3 window, you can often find that farmers market inside. And that's good for, I think, the year-round economic health of those vendors.
Councilor Ellingson, did you?
No, I agree with what Chester just got through saying, along with now having more members. But I would like to thank you for presenting a budget in a way that anybody, namely me, I get it. The income and the expenses.
Well, I'm with you. I have to present it in a way I can understand also.
So I wish other things were as understandable as this. Some other things, anyway. But thank you.
Nikki, I don't mean to speak for council by any means, but for myself, I clearly can say that, I've seen a marked improvement, visibility, programming in an excellent manner, and I think demonstrated again for me. I happened to attend the membership annual meeting a week ago or so, and it wasn't just a few people in the room. The auditorium was packed, and that was refreshing for membership to get updated. And in essence, those are always signals for me that they're getting involved. And I think evidenced by your 2,500 hours, roughly. Does that translate? I know some put in long days and others short snippets, but is there a total number of people that you could count on, kind of on your volunteer pool, that are heavily engaged or engaged?
Well, I would say at the info center, that we have two pools of volunteers, and the info center is where the people who have a stable schedule, who like to work on the same day every week, and I'd say that's probably a group of about 20 people who help keep the info center up and running and are doing the same thing every week. And then we have event volunteers that only come forth when they're called, and I have a group of, I'd say, about 30 people that I can call upon there. So that's just kind of a ballpark.
Oh, I can imagine. I guess at some point, if you don't already have a volunteer coordinator to kind of keep all this stuff going.
Yeah, retaining them, keeping the volunteers enthused, keeping them, feeling valuable, and managing their time is a big challenge. And as we grow, I think that's the next step. If we could find a volunteer coordinator or find some system that would work, it would make that place work even better.
Well,
are you still accepting volunteers?
Always.
So how would somebody go about volunteering?
Well, the best way, I think, would be to call our main line. That's 541-994-9994 and speak with Vicki.
994?
Correct. 9s and 4s all in the right order.
Excellent. Yes.
Question. Towards the end of your report, you've got a list of donors.
Yes, sir.
And the different categories. But you don't have a dollar value attached to those categories. It might be helpful if we knew what those were. Or is there a reason why you didn't?
Well, we thought just in this report form it might be discretion would probably be the better part. The lifetime donors are $5,000 and above.
Okay.
And I believe, let me check with. Okay, so 500, 250, 100, and 50.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so we tried to list every single donor that we had this year. We think every last one's important.
You bet. Excellent job. It really, for me, it's made a big difference, and the programming has, I think you've met your desired goal of a little bit for everybody, and even the coffee series, I think, is kind of fun. You can count on it and stuff. So
yeah, those coffee concerts are fun because they provide local musicians a place where they can try out a few numbers or have a concert, and all the money goes back to the cultural center. But they have an audience, and it's a nice little place to be on a Sunday afternoon.
Good.
I also encourage you to come to D-Lake Dance Night. There's free dance lessons.
Okay. I'll pass that on to council.
Okay, you do that.
Any other questions for Nikki? Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the update. It's nice to hear, and hear when you're not asking for anything either. And it's good movement. Thank you.
Well, I welcome everybody to come by and see what's happening. Thanks for the time.
Thanks, Nikki.
Thanks a lot.
Let's see, our next item is the Bi-Mart agreement, and you've got the information in your packet regarding the Bi-Mart, but Joan, you wanted to give us a summary on this, or in some caveats, or?
Let me summarize it, and then Joan's going to tell you what has to happen to it to make it work.
Okay.
Okay. as council knows, and I think most of the public knows, initially Bi-Mart was going to build to a LEED standard and get certification to that. That didn't happen. There's a lot of reasons probably why it didn't happen, but safe to say it didn't. And so we negotiated with Bi-Mart some alternatives that could be done after the fact and came up with 3 things that they're willing to commit to. They will do an energy audit, and anything that comes out of that audit that will show a payback within 5 years, they'll implement. They're going to commit to the Blue Sky, the Pacific Power Blue Sky program, which is alternative energy, at the same level that the city does. And finally, they're going to donate, contribute, I guess is the better word, $25,000 to a fund that the city will establish to investigate and further sewering around the lake. As you know, we have approximately 700 septic systems around the lake, and it contributes to the problems that the lake has. So that'll be some seed money to help get us started looking a little harder at that issue. With that, Joan?
This is more of a legal correction than anything else, but we received late information. Thankfully, Kathy Steer did some extra work on this, and in double-checking the property owner's name, we became aware that Bi-Mart had transferred the property to another corporation. My guess is that it's a Bi-Mart subsidiary, a local subsidiary, but I haven't been able to get in touch with them yet, and I would like you to delegate to me the authority to add all necessary parties to the agreement and make sure they sign.
We can do that. Thank you. I guess the statement, thank you for the background, Mr. Hunker, and as council knows, we've been dealing with this issue and trying to figure out a way and what we can do in order to resolve this issue of not having it been built by LEED standards. And as we were concentrating on what those items might be, quite frankly, we had a very willing participant in the form of Bi-Mart, and we were as sensitive as we could be about not wanting to jeopardize our relationship with Bi-Mart and being an employer and a long-term standing in the community, but at the same time, holding their feet to the fire as to what had been agreed upon, i.e. when they agreed to purchase the property. And so they were very good about it, also understood, and I think these 3 items that we came up with stayed with the theme of environment, one trying to help themselves, and as you public knows, it's a new building, and one would hope that all the energy saving steps would have been taken, but we asked for the audit simply to help another third party just to take a look. Same thing with the alternative energy. That's an important piece to wean our way off fossil fuels, and they were quick to agree with us. And then finally the sewer. Our plan eventually is to get around, or at least research, study sewer system around the lake, and that still touches the environment. So we felt very consistent with this process. I'll entertain any comments if the council wishes to make any comments regarding this agreement.
Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to thank yourself and the city manager for negotiating this agreement successfully.
Thank you. All right. With that, then, I would entertain a motion to approve the Bi-Mart agreement with the provision that we allow our legal counsel to add all property owners to the agreement. And if there's any systemic changes, she'd bring it back to us. But at this point, we just figure it's going to be names.
There might be some other minor changes that I need to make. If it's anything substantive, we'll bring it back.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the BIMART agreement with the caveat that our city legal counsel has the authority to add property owners as deemed necessary. Roll call vote, please.
Norikis?
Yes.
Sprague?
Yes.
Quant?
Yes.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes.
Ward?
Yes.
Eggleton? And Ellingson?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Next item is city manager report.
First item, I think at this point is probably just an announcement, which is that we're going to continue the VCB workshop this Wednesday, this room, 1 o'clock. I'm guessing that we'll spend at least a couple hours at that and make some time available for public comment. Does that work with everybody? I think we got confirmations from 6 of you, and I hope that all of you can attend.
Sounds good. All right.
Okay. Next item is fireworks. We're at the point now where we need to decide if we wish to fund fireworks and where. And I ask you to recall several different presentations and conversations that we've had along the way. One was some time ago where we heard from businesses as well as members of BAMA, Bay Area Merchants Association. We heard from some of the public about the economic benefits and the traditional benefits of the 4th of July fireworks. We heard some survey information from, I wasn't at that meeting, so it's a little hard for me to speak to it, but you heard some survey information that was done on the 4th, I believe. You got some information to see how the fireworks related to other events and overall costs of the VCB. My recommendation, because of what all I've heard, and that and also the economy that we find ourselves in, the fact that the 4th of July is really not quite, it's nudging into the peak season, but really hasn't hit it. That we continue at least 2012, July 4th, 2012, excuse me, as we have before. Again, council, if they choose to do that, could reevaluate each year. There's probably the option of having it at the casino. There's the option of not having it at all, etc. But I think you've heard quite a few different opinions on this, and it really, at this point, it's up to council.
So, council, the recommendation has been from staff to remain as is, in the Taft area, July 4th, with fireworks, and to continue with fireworks. I would add the caveat right now, the costs are in the VCB budget, so that would also be a continuation of that as well. Comments?
I'd just like to indicate that as regards having it at the casino site versus the Spit, Salishan Spit, where we traditionally have shot the fireworks show, that it's much safer on the Spit than it is at the casino site, because they are limited by site. The state law says that for every inch in diameter of shells you shoot, you must add 100 feet to that in circumference on each side of where you're shooting. So you're really talking about 600 feet on one side just for a 3-inch shell. The largest that they can shoot at the casino site is a 4-inch shell. On the Spit, we have the option to go as high as 7 or 8 inches if we want to. So we can have, even though we don't have as many shells as they shoot, we have more spectacular shells. And so I thought it's worth pointing that out.
Other comments from council?
Well, I was struck during the first half, I guess, of the VCB workshop that we had the other day. On I'm trying to remember the numbers that Sandy Pfaff came up with. I think it was, with the way that she figured it, 200,000 for in returns to the community, if you consider just with the overnight people, not counting the day people, and if they were worth half that, then it was another 100,000.
Yeah, well, there's so many different ways of doing that, and I think I did one in the memo that you might have. It was a different way, because I think the real unknown is, if you take away the fireworks, what would be there? Sure. And I think it depends on a lot on time of year, and that was another thing I mentioned in my memo, is July 4th this year is on a Wednesday, and I think that has powerful implications as far as whether we should do it or not. If it's on a Saturday or Sunday, Monday holiday, whatever, arguably at that time of year we would have higher occupancy than we have on a Wednesday in our lodging. So it probably adds more to the community on a Wednesday by bringing people in than it would if it was a Monday holiday, for example. So what is not in Sandy's calculation, and really not in mine very well, is how many people would be here without the 4th, and how many people would be here with the 4th, and how many of them stay. That's really hard to do, but it is certainly going to be based on the day of week. Mm-hmm. And this year in particular, I think Wednesday could get pretty thin here on the 4th without this.
Sure. So, I mean, conservatively speaking, then, it looks like a pretty good return on investment.
For this year, for sure.
Yeah. So, I mean, that plus the kind of the historical value of it, certainly the tradition of it. It's been around for, gosh, coming up on 100 years, not too long. I think it's a really worthwhile thing to have in the community, and certainly provides a good return on investment.
Other comments from council?
Just one other comment, and that is that the survey that the high school kids did was certainly a random thing. They didn't survey as many people as we would have liked, but the figures that they came up with were surprising to me, and that was that in the neighborhood of 50% of the people that were there were from out of town, and that about half of them would not have come if it hadn't been for the fireworks. So it is a draw, and it's the one event out of the year that I don't think we probably bring, or that brings the most people to town for one event. I don't think there's any other event that we do that brings that many people.
Hearing no more comments, then, I'd certainly entertain a motion.
I move that we retain the fireworks show and fund it through the VCB as we have been before.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to retain the fireworks show as we have been in the Taft area, and with funding through the VCB budget. Roll call, please.
Sprague?
Yes.
Quant? Yes. Mayor Anderson?
Yes.
Ward?
Yes.
Eggleton?
Yes.
Ellingson?
Yes.
And Norikis?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Mr. Rocker, anything else in the category?
Not anything urgent. I remind maybe the public that we talked earlier, because of the Budget Committee appointments, that the budget is in preparation. If people have, particularly the nonprofits that get funding, we've made the request. The letters have gone out to those that have requested money in the past, and a few new ones, that they should turn that information in so that the council or a committee of council can talk about funding those outside agencies. And, of course, if anybody has any input into the budget process at the administrative level, it comes out of my office, and I'm happy to hear some comments, suggestions, whatever. And it's not going to be, it's not like we have a lot of extra money laying on the table. I'll just say that, because we don't. But if anybody has any suggestions on new things or cost-saving ideas or whatever, always happy to hear them.
Great. Thank you. All right. Then moving on to, Joan, do you have anything? Sir? Moving on to next item, actually, it'd be a public hearing item, but staff has made a request for us to continue this item, and the item being the villages at Cascade Head, to a future meeting.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, councilors. Just a little bit of background. Villages at Cascade Head, most of the property there was owned by Teeny Development, which had gotten us a loan from an organization called ANB Financial, which was a big lender based in Arkansas. The comptroller of the currency shut that organization down in 2008, and the FDIC took over their assets and entered into an agreement with a new company called ANB Ventures, who has foreclosed on Teeny Development and has taken the property back from them. They got a deed in lieu of foreclosure. So A&B is now, as of I think late last week, is now the legal owner of most of the property there. I met with their representative on Thursday. Before the transfer took place, we weren't sure of exactly what the status was. I know the Teeny Development was thinking they might be able to work things out with the bank, but they were not able to. So it had been thinking of a continuance on your hearing just for 2 weeks to the 26th of this month. They have asked for the A&B Ventures has asked for a longer continuance, essentially for them to undertake some of the things that Teeny Development had agreed to do a year ago, and by doing that, show their good faith and and address some issues that might come up in the actual appeal concerns that the council has. We had been talking about May 28th, but May 28th is Memorial Day. So I don't know if you're meeting on Memorial Day or not, but I'm assuming you're not. And so a continuance to May 14th or June 11th would be, I think, would be a good idea. They have agreed to toll the 120 days to June 11th at this point. I'm sure they would agree if they needed a further extension for any final order. I'm sure they would agree to that too. So.
Is there any ramifications of time? We're okay.
The only thing is the 120 days, which actually runs out May 2nd, but they've agreed to toll the time, so there's no...
That would be the only thing?
No real concern.
Just a question. Does that mean that during the period between now and then that they won't be doing anything towards the requirements?
Actually, what they've told me is that they want to use that time to do the things that need to be done in terms of things like pavement, and putting the final lift of pavement on that area where they've actually sold some houses, and I know we've already had someone that they're working with come in and ask about what it's take to reinstate all the building permits that were issued for those houses and so on. So I think they're serious about getting it back on track. And basically what they're asking for this time to demonstrate that they're serious about it.
Then it would seem to me that longer is better than shorter. If that's the case, give them a little bit of time to make something happen.
I was going to suggest instead of the May meeting that we then postpone that until June.
Certainly.
I'd like to make a recommendation that's actually two parts. One is that you continue this to your next meeting, and at that time ask A&B to submit something in writing so that we know that we have in writing their agreement to toll the time from...
I've got it told, agreement in writing told through the 11th, June 11th.
You have that in writing?
Yes.
And you have that here?
Yeah. Well, I've got it in my office. They signed it.
Okay, if you can provide that to the city recorder tonight. That's what I was asking for, to actually be provided to the city council so that the city council can be assured that we have that. But I think we can rely on your representation that you've received it and you have it in hand. We also have a deed that was recorded Friday, March 9th. So I'm fine with that additional time. I think the outside time that we have is probably a year total. So, but tolling until June is fine.
Mr. Mayor,
Please.
I would just like to ask a question about procedure while Mr. Townsend is still here, or maybe for Ms. Kelsey. Right now, this is not a public hearing. We're talking about postponing the public hearing.
Right.
So if we had a comment to make as council members about concerns or something that we would like to see addressed when the public meeting occurs, is there a chance to make that input, or do we need to wait until an actual public hearing is convened?
Well, I think we're in a little bit of decision land, because what David Hawker and I recommended was that the City Council call up the Planning Commission decision to extend the approval because there were numerous issues that the city wanted to review. So we are in that a little bit of an awkward box that there's a land use decision which you are going to hear, and I think your opportunity to do that will be this public hearing. I don't think that prevents you from talking with Richard at all about any concerns you might have, but if that should be that's not an ex parte contact to talk with the planning director about what's happening on this application.
So the best would be certainly after the meeting or at another time. Is that correct? You're advising if people from council have questions, want to take it up with Mr. Townsend or staff, not from the council tonight?
Correct. And I think what I'm suggesting is if you have questions about the application or about any issues with the application, you can discuss that with Richard prior to the hearing.
Okay.
Let me go one step further and make this really awful. This is a huge piece of property with a huge number of potential units, a long-term future, one way or the other, whether it's continued or whether it's done as regular subdivisions or whatever, has huge implications on the city. A lot of work's been done. Is there any way for council or council members to become more familiar with what is in the plan, what is on the ground, outside of the hearing process?
Yes, I think we could arrange for a visit to the property so that you could actually tour it. Could have the property owner there, could have Richard there to answer questions.
And I don't also anything that we've got binders full of materials, and be happy to show you the maps and so on that show you exactly what it is we're talking about. So.
If council would be interested, let me work with Joan and Richard a little bit more to flush that out a little bit more and make sure we're not stepping on some procedural toe or crossing a line or probably this is probably a public meeting issue and so on.
Yeah, it's clear that you can do a site inspection of a city facility, and that's not considered a public meeting. I think an inspection of a private project is a public meeting, so that does make it a little more difficult. Honestly, my suggestion is to wait until the hearing so that everybody gets the same information. The challenge to staff will be to provide all of you with adequate background summary material, and maybe the best way is to have you submit any specific questions that you have to Richard or David or me, and we'll try to put those together and then get answers back to everybody as part of the public process.
It'd be nice to kick the dirt.
Well, see, I think we can do, I'd like to have, it makes sense to actually see the project. It's a long-term project, it's a huge project, it has a huge impact on the city, and I think we can figure that out. There are constraints. That's not a traveling discussion. It's really just looking at the property, and then when you come back, we can put on the record, at a public meeting, what your questions are from that site visit.
If you like, we'll try to work on that.
I would. I think it would be very helpful for council to actually see, and within the proper constraints. But if you get back to us, that would be terrific.
I would like that. I've been aware of this since the 90s. So
good.
That doesn't.
Anything else? I would say then we'd move, I like the idea of the June 11th. I guess I question, not knowing the lender, but of their knowledge base of weather and weather-related items, how effective that might be. It might be different in Arkansas than Lincoln City. But I'm willing to go to the June 11th, and I guess longer. Joan, you indicated we may have a year constraint, but I would. I guess what I'm trying to say is I would like to give them as much time as possible to show good faith in activities and improvement.
Here.
But at this point, I think I would entertain a motion to...
Mr. Mayor, just
please,
before you do that, Richard, are you anticipating renoticing the hearing or not?
No, assuming there's a continuance tonight is granted, because we did notice it for tonight.
Then I think we need to open the hearing technically and then immediately continue it.
We certainly can renotice it. I mean, there's plenty
So
of time.
my only question is, if we're trying to arrange actually maybe a meeting with a site inspection prior to the meeting, the question is, would those happen on one day? Or, might there be a site inspection prior to the actual hearing date? So it makes a difference in terms of the date of continuance if you're not going to do another notice.
How big is the notice? How many mailings?
It's not that many. I'm not sure what it is, but it's not that many because it's, even though it's a big property, there's, on the north and east sides, there aren't many properties.
So 50 notices or so?
Something like that, yeah. It's not that big a deal.
I would renotice anyway.
Okay.
So it's really not a continuance, or no, we'd still do a continuance?
I think it's a continuance, but we're still going to renotice. So I would ask that you open the public hearing and then call for a motion to continue it to a date and time certain at 6 o'clock in these chambers on June 11th.
Do you, and that follows with your thinking and be all right?
Yes, absolutely.
And nothing else to add?
No.
Okay. With that, then, why don't I officially open the public hearing? This will be for the villages at the Cascade Head and Rock Creek Village, hearing to review a Planning Commission decision approving a 2-year extension of the land use approvals with conditions. I would...
Mr. Mayor, I move we continue this hearing to June 11th.
2012, 6 p.m., this location?
Yep, you bet.
Is there a second? Second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed with a nay? Hearing none? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
See you June 11th, if not before.
Be right back.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. Let's see. Then I need a motion to... Do I need a motion to close the public hearing, or...
No, because you're leaving it open. You're continuing it.
Thank you. Then, moving ahead on the agenda, we have we need to recess the City Council meeting, so please consider it recessed.
Mr. Mayor?
Please.
If we recess it, could we recess it for, just a few minutes?
Okay.
Since you've been mayor, I don't think there's ever been a recess in the a break in the council meeting. This would be,
if we were
first for you. There's first for everything for every mayor.
I can consider that. I'll keep the audience waiting, the citizens.
Because you've never done it before.
I'm hoping there's more of a reason than that to recess. Why don't we recess the council meeting, and in 5 minutes or so, we'll reconvene the appeal board.
Thank you.
All right? Thank you.
I understand.
On record?
Because they're not exempt, and I finally agreed with her. I said we didn't make them exempt,
All right.
except for the first year. Because we didn't want to double dip them in
All
the...
that's happened is public comments for an hour.
All right. If we can, I'd like to reconvene and call to order the City of Lincoln City Vacation Rental Dwelling Appeals Board, meeting to be held today, March 12th, 2012. Roll call, please.
Anderson?
Here.
Eggleton?
Here.
Ellingson?
I'm going to abstain.
Norikis?
Here.
Sprague?
I will abstain. I wasn't here for that meeting.
Quant?
Here.
And Ward?
Here. All right, we have two items under the consent agenda. One, the minutes.
Mayor, I'd like to abstain also because I wasn't here for that first meeting.
Thank you. Forgot all about you. Yeah. All right. It's amazing how we were able to do business without the three of you guys around. Yeah.
So only 4 of you are going to actually discuss business now?
Correct.
Okay.
Do you want us to step down?
Yes, if you're not participating in the meeting.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Chester, will you watch my sandwich?
This gets you additional paces at those 10,000 you need to acquire every day, right? So.
All right, so we have a consent agenda, and on the consent agenda are, number 1, the minutes of the meeting, February 27th, 2012, and number 2, the final order, 2012-01, an appeal of a decision by the Planning and Community Development Director denying a VRD license for a residence at 3210 Southwest Beach Avenue. Appellants Scott and Kathleen Keever.
Mr. Chair, let me just explain that the order that you're adopting from your decision is to uphold the decision of the Planning and Community Development Director who denied the renewal of a VRD license. So this denies your decision that you're adopting tonight in the form of a final order, denies their appeal.
Any questions? And I'm assuming even though this is a consent agenda, we can either deal with, with that explanation that helps with further clarify number 2. Don't necessarily need to pull it for a separate discussion, but unless there is some. With that, then I'd take a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion with a second to approve consent agenda. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed with a nay? Hearing none. It's approved. That's the only business we have, and so I would adjourn the Vacation Rental Dwelling Appeals Board and reconvene the City Council meeting. And given the City Council meeting, our next agenda item is citizens' comments. If there are yet to be made some comments from citizens, now would be the time. And it's early, too. Appreciate that. Now would be the time from councilors. Any comments? Councilor Sprague? Nice to see you.
I won't see you next meeting. I'll be traveling.
Got you down. Anything else? You all right? Councilor Eggleton, you're the long-term traveler, so welcome back. You'll be here. You're looking, a little bruised for wear, but we can talk about that off record. Any comments or anything? All right. Councilor Quan? You'll be here. Good. All right. Councilor Ward?
Yeah, I'll be here too. Are we just commenting on whether or not we're going to be here?
I'm counting on you being here.
You know what? I wanted to mention, I like to mention things that I'm excited about that's going on in the community. And there is a dodgeball league starting, which I think that some people have heard about. I believe that the community center is that correct, Don? Yeah.
We saw the movie, so is this something different?
Well, you know what? I'm not the official spokesperson. I'm just excited about the maybe the cathartic activity. I think that there's quite a few people that are interested in it, and boy, it sure would be fun to have more folks interested. I think that you might be able to contact Don Williams at Nelscott Cafe if you're looking for more information on that.
That'd be good. Okay. Yeah, that could be exciting.
Sure.
I nodded my head to that one with like, what's next?
I know.
There's 60 people interested in doing it.
Is that right?
So, yeah. I mean, 60 people interested in doing anything in this town that are willing to sign up for something is really exciting, and I'm hoping that it takes off.
That's great. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, you bet.
Counselor?
No,
Nixon?
nothing.
Nothing.
Oh, no offense, David, but I wouldn't join that league.
All right.
What, are they using hardballs?
Counselor Barakis?
Nothing, thank you.
Nothing. My gosh. I scribbled down. I was hoping you guys would pick up on this stuff. I do have a couple of reminders. One, for those with Irish descent, Saturday's real important. March 17th is St. Patrick's Day. Again, Cutler City is having an evacuation drill this coming Wednesday, March 14th at 11 a.m. Kudos should go out to those who participated and organized the half marathon and 10K race. I was one of the folks standing on the sideline, not participating, but there were over 429 registered participants, and last count there were roughly 351 that were from out of town. I watched them go by. I know they were there. Mr. Hawker, phone issues. We've had a little bit of phone issue. It might be helpful.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. The best information that I've got is that those that have charter phones through a charter bundle package have had some difficulty calling switchboards, main switchboard numbers at City Hall, at the casino, and the hospital. My understanding is, and this is pretty secondhand, is the charter was sending additional data along with a phone number through the system. And when that data hit a switchboard, a main switchboard, it confused it. I got word from Charter today that they believe they fixed that. But, boy, I'm really glad you brought this up. If they haven't fixed that, we really need to know. And so particularly off-hours calls to, like, City Hall from a Charter phone, if you have any problems, we certainly need to know. Call us back during the day. Call on one of the different numbers besides the main number. Same thing if you find a difficulty with the casino or the hospital. They all have the same kind of systems, I believe, that we have here. We really need to know, because we'll stay on Charter till we get this fixed. But thank you for bringing it up, because we really need to hear if there's more problems.
Good. And that's, again, we need the help from the public. It's primarily those who have chartered bundle services, more than one service, or just
well, that's
we don't know
secondhand information that I've gotten. Whether or not somebody who has just charter one service, meaning just the phone, I don't know if they're experiencing problems or not. Because we only had, I think, 3 or 4 reports, maybe 5 reports from different customers. So it's hard to tell if it stopped.
Yeah.
We didn't get any calls today.
Okay. Thank you. And that's, again, trying to keep the public informed. Again, a reminder, as stated earlier, we've got the work session this Wednesday at 1 p.m. for Phase 2 of the VCB work session. Also, just a note of interest, last Tuesday I attended a session in Pacific City, the Oregon Ocean Policy Advisory Council Territorial Sea Plan Working Group. They were having a public hearing in Pacific City regarding the renewable energy development on the Oregon's territorial sea. That's 3 miles out. Interestingly, I was the only Lincoln City person there. There were roughly 128 people, and 25 spoke, and the council talked about it being the largest attended and participatory, which was encouraging. Earlier in the day, they had one in Depot Bay, and I'm not sure if Lincoln people had attended that. But what that primarily covers is the viewscape for the concerns, and where and if, not if, but where wave energy type machines would be placed. In addition, I've been asked to participate with ODOT and the Lincoln County Transit. And Mr. Ellington, I would hope you'd join me with this. This is on, again, transportation, and it appears there's going to be a study on conducting a comprehensive transportation demand and system management plan for the Salmon River Highway corridor between Salem and Lincoln City. So yet to be determined, but all the indications I've got so far, they're going to be looking at that. So again, I think it helps us to be personally invited to attend the party, and like I say, we'll be there. With that, I can't think of anything else. One last run at anyone. Food for thought. Again, I apologize for being so early, but I'll adjourn the meeting.